Ghosty fam, Amy here. Welcome to The Activity Continues, a podcast where three soul friends talk about all things paranormal. Ghosts, hauntings, psychics, movies and TV shows, especially The Dead Files, and other spooky and spooky adjacent things. We also like to interview people in the paranormal community, as well as past Dead Files clients and other interesting people. Sometimes we even tell your stories. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hello. Thanks for joining us again. Today we are talking to Erika Anderson. Erika is a dedicated spiritual medium and channeler. As an experienced teacher of intuition and mediumship, she facilitates workshops and mentors students on their spiritual journeys. She's also a loving wife and mother who enjoys reading, is passionate about music, and immersing herself in nature. Amy, you set all this up. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Erika?
Cool. I actually took a masterclass from her a couple of weeks ago. It was a mediumship masterclass. It was a free thing that she offers, and it was live, like we were all on a Zoom, and we could ask her questions and stuff. And it was just really cool. And she did a couple of exercises with us. It was all about like sort of honing into your abilities and things like that. And it was really cool. And so I thought maybe it would be fun to talk to her.
Yeah. Awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the content warning, I don't know what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to assume that dead people are going to come up, but I don't know what else. So check the show notes and I'll put anything else in there that we need to. And our live show is coming up, and I will just splice in what I said in the other one for this one.
Splice.
And I'll do the same for the Patreon changes.
Cool.
Okay. Should we let her in?
Let's go. 3, 2, 1.
Let her in.
Hello.
Hello, Erika.
Hi, Erika.
How are you all?
Good.
Doing
How
well.
are you?
How are you?
Peachy
I'm
Keen.
doing great.
Great. I'm Amy. I'm the one that you've been talking to, and I'm the one that was in your
Hi.
class a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome.
And then we have AP. Do you want to raise your hand?
Yep, I'm AP.
And
AP.
Megan.
Okay, I'm going to write
Hi.
down your names here.
There
Obviously,
will be
I
a
know-
quiz. So
AP is actually also an Amy.
Yep.
Oh, okay. But
So
we
you
go
can,
by AP.
you can also call her AP if you want. We
Okay.
do Amy and AP so that we don't get too confusing for people who are
Okay.
listening.
oh, that mug is very pretty.
Thanks. It's a Christmas mug.
Oh,
I love
Nice.
it.
My
Christmas
favorite-
in July. Although
My
it's August.
favorite
August.
mug is a mug that has cats on it and it says Meowie Christmas.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah. My mother-in-law gave it to me.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I think when you drink stuff out of your favorite mug, it tastes better.
Yeah. I have like 3 favorite mugs, and that's one of them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
It makes me
Understandable.
feel like I'm getting more volume too.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mhm.
sure.
I get it.
I think my favorite one is just says a badass woman on it. So
Nice.
Well, that's good. I like that
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Better than poinsettias.
Hey, I love my Christmas mug.
Hey.
I got a few know me ones.
I do. I have some Christmas ones too that I like.
Oh. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for
thank you.
joining us. We
Yeah.
I
have,
really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
when we talked about what we were going to talk about, and you were like, I could talk about this and this and this. I was like, let's do all of that. It all
Yeah.
sounds really
Yes,
fun.
please.
Whatever
Yeah.
you want. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll go there. I'll go anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
That's
my
a
favorite.
dangerous statement.
It
Is
is.
it?
It's not that kind of a show.
Okay.
We do swear sometimes, though. So feel free to swear if you want to.
Okay.
Or not. It's up to you.
You don't have to.
I'll
We're not
be
going to
myself.
peer pressure you
Yeah.
into swearing.
swearing.
Be yourself is exactly right, Erika.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Whatever makes you comfortable.
I will say I cannot guarantee that one of my dogs will not jump in my lap
Yeah.
at some point.
That's
That's okay.
happened.
Just
It's
a
happened.
FYI.
What kind of a dog?
British Lab. Black
Oh,
Lab. Mhm.
oh yeah. Sweet.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. He
Mine is
so
sitting in
beautiful.
a dog bed right here.
What kind do you have?
I have a Yorkie. I'm going to
Oh,
see if I can scoot this over so you can see her.
oh my
Oh, the
goodness.
tongue is sticking out and everything.
So sweet. Her little tongue. Yeah, our dog passed away about 1.5 years ago. And
Mhm.
so
I'm sorry.
just like, I'm just starting to feel like, oh, I
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
consider getting another
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
family
That's
member.
losing a pet
Yeah.
is the worst.
Yeah,
It's
Mhm.
hard.
it's hard. It's traumatic.
It's a
So
family
Yeah.
member. I mean, that's
Mhm.
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
is.
I fully believe that they either come back to us or they send us what we don't realize we need. And I always call them the healers. There's never a replacement. So some people say, "Oh, I got a dog to replace the one I lost." Nope, you didn't get a replacement because that puts expectations on the dog that
Mhm.
is not fair. You got a
Mhm.
healer, one that helps heal that missing piece of your heart into the scar tissue that helps you keep going on.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think when we try to replace anything, it's kind of unfair to everybody.
Yeah.
I like your explanation. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
I lost my boy. They all know almost a year and a half ago as well. But I have his great
Oh,
grandson as my healer. So
oh, good. Well,
Nice.
I'm glad
Mhm.
you got that. Yeah.
Do you
Mm.
do any sort of spiritual connection with animals?
You'd be surprised. So I don't say that I specialize in that.
Mhm.
I just do mediumship. So
Mhm.
I will say that I've had horses come through with the
Really?
funniest stories about their people. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, I had one woman who wanted to connect to her daughter's horse. It
Mm.
was very much a family member, extremely important horse that surprisingly passed away. And um, obviously I didn't know anything about this
Mm.
horse, but the horse was like telling stories about how the daughter was afraid of mice that were in this barn, and like it was like hilarious. And so I mean this horse like had advice. I mean they're
That's
just
cool.
all creatures are just
Oh.
souls experiencing life like we
Yeah.
are in a
Mhm.
different capacity. And the horse was helping to pick out other horses that were going to be coming into our world, which
Mhm.
Go.
did. I've had guinea pigs come in,
Really?
cats and dogs. I mean, it's like I had one reading recently where I was just like, I can't really tell, but it's small and brown, and I just like it's squishy. And she's like, "Oh, that's my guinea pig." And I'm like, "Okay," because it wasn't a dog and it wasn't a cat, and I never had a guinea pig come in before. So, but I don't say that I'm a pet communicator or anything like that. It's just if they want to
Yeah.
come through, they will.
Mhm.
And
So
I let them.
when you get them, this might be a stupid question, but how do you like are they able to like speak to you? Like how, because like horses can't obviously speak when the way
Yeah.
we speak. So how does that come through?
That's such a good question. That's just like any mediumship. So, um, in mediumship, when we are connecting with people who have crossed over, they they're not speaking in words either. It's not like a language that you can hear. You kind of have to take a step back to think about it, but we are all spirit. We're all energy.
Mhm.
We come into this life in our bodies that grow and mature and then die. And so it's the same for an animal. And so when I'm communicating as a medium, or even when I'm doing a psychic reading, I am stepping out of my mind and fully stepping in and immersing with my energy and then connecting my energy to whomever's energy. And so it is the language of energy that we're interpreting. And so there are different ways that that filters in through. So clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, all of those ways. And so it's the same thing, like if a horse or a dog
Mhm. Or a
comes
guinea
through,
pig?
or a guinea pig or whatever comes through, it's the same as with like a person, whether they're speaking English or Spanish or Icelandic, or so it's all energy. And so
Mm.
once you become versed in that, doesn't matter what language, you
Mhm.
pick it all up through the same senses that
Interesting.
you would get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So if somebody wanted to grow their mediumship abilities, how I mean, how do you even go about doing that? Is that something you can do, or is it something that you just kind of have to be born with? And if you don't have it, then you don't have it. I mean, what does that look like?
well, so we're all born as spirits in a body. So we all have it, right? We all have a spirit. We all have the capability of operating through our spiritual senses because they're innately who we are more than even our physical senses. However, we've been born in these physical bodies and as humans for a reason to be embodied, to experience this three-dimensional life, right? And so some of us are meant to do very human things on this planet, very tangible, what we consider, three-dimensional reality. And that's beautiful. That's like a life path. That's a soul healing path. That's a soul growth path. Others come in and have an ability right when they're born. Well, we all actually have abilities when we're born. We kind of get conditioned out of it as we get older, right? We
Right.
all know the stories of like the 4-year-old who remembers their past lives or all of that. And so if you're trying to remember your mediumship abilities or how to communicate spirit to spirit, then it's really about developing that muscle. And so as a piano player, you can practice piano and learn how to read the keys and how to write notes and compositions. So I firmly believe it's the same with our psychic and intuitive abilities. Some of us are more apt in this life to develop that because that's part of our soul contract and our soul path. And so oftentimes it's interesting, like for me, it came out of really, at the time, I thought it was nowhere, but then I went back to my childhood and remembered all these different things. But for some people, it's just a curiosity. Like, what is this? I'm curious about this. I consider that a calling as well. It's just a different kind of calling. And as long as you're not attached to what the outcome is, then the pressure isn't there and you can really enjoy this spiritual unfoldment. And so, anyways, to answer your question directly, I guess I would say that is where you start developing. So for me, when it happened, I started having experiences that really came on suddenly after a couple of traumatic events I went through. And after that happened, it was like something shifted inside of me, or like Leonard Cohen, the crack is where the light comes in. Like that's kind of what happened. And then I was like, well, what is this? I need to figure out what this is because I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. And so then I found people like literally through Google and was like, help, I need help. And and I did get that. And so then it became like this path of understanding what was happening, remembering that I am spirit, and then understanding my calling. And so it's really about practicing using the spiritual senses just as much as we practice using our physical abilities, right? It's truly a spiritual muscle, just like lifting weights builds muscle. And so it's going to be easier for some people than others, but everyone has the potential.
Is
So
that a class that like you could take, like we could take with you? Is that something you would teach?
Actually, I am. I'm teaching a class in September. And it's online. And so, there's a lot of really amazing teachers who are teaching this. I feel like it's really exploding in like the world right now. And I think it's because we are changing so rapidly and there's like, we're leveling up, we're meant to remember, we're meant to evolve. And so all of a sudden there are so many of us who are curious. There are so many of us who have gone through significant journeys to be where we are. And so many people who want to be like, let's usher in more. We're here to heal. We're here to make the world a better place. And I think
social media too is helping because people are seeing, oh my gosh, there's more people like me
sharing their experiences. And we're also questioning everything we've been taught a lot more.
Totally.
And just having our eyes open. So when you think about that awakening of other things, to me, I think about just like, I look back at, me who went to Catholic school and thought one thing, and me today, I'm like, wow, just the journey that you go on to, just see things from a different perspective. some
Mhm.
people never want to see anything from a
Mhm.
different perspective.
No.
And I think that's part of the journey too. I so relate to the Catholic school. I went to Catholic school up until like fifth grade and my whole life I went to church like twice a
Mhm.
week. You're really indoctrinated, and
Mhm.
whether it's Catholic or Muslim or all sorts of different
Mhm.
beliefs, I think they're all right, and I think they're all wrong. You know,
Yeah,
and the right is the God part. The right is the mystery and the magic and the unity. The wrong is we're right and you're wrong.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
and
Yeah.
that's always been like
We're
my
gonna be mean.
strongest hard take on that, is that how can we just be so unruly to so
Mhm.
many other people just because they have a strong belief in something that I don't believe,
Yeah.
or
Right.
that I don't know. And then you get to see a little bit more and you learn more. And I love learning about all like Greek mythology, Roman mythology, indigenous peoples' cultures,
Mhm.
ancient Chinese cultures, like just so fascinating. Every group has a story as to how everything happens.
Yeah.
Because
And
you had to explain it.
yeah, and usually if you go back far enough, all the stories are similar.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
The Egyptian god Ra is
Mhm.
like the sun god. And
Mhm.
here we have the Christian faith, we're worshiping the son of God.
Yep.
And so,
Mhm.
like, what gets lost in
Yeah.
translation? I just think that there's so much that is so similar that we are all getting
Yeah.
trapped in like these tiny logistics and like the power structures of our
Yeah.
mind. And part of the development process that I've gone through spiritually is not caring what other people believe anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that to me is liberation.
Mhm.
Like, I really
Oh,
don't
yeah.
care what
sure.
you believe.
Yeah.
And
And that's something that I'm struggling with too, because like I'm a very like I have Christian faith, so God and all of that. But I also am like leaning more towards like, Wicca and, understanding like we're all from the earth and we have goddess and goddesses and all of that stuff. So that for me has been tough because I want to meld them both. And like I don't want to lose my faith, but I also am interested in these other areas. And like so Amy actually sent me a TikTok talking about like how to meld the two.
I love melding the two. I mean, if you think about it, if you believe in God or like a Christian monotheistic entity of, what we call God, um, well, God created the earth then and empowered us to live on it. So
Mhm.
of course we're meant to work with the seasons and the moon and
Mhm.
the sun and the herbs and like our body rhythms. To me, it all
Yeah.
makes sense. Like there is no separation.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's a good way of thinking about it.
I think the only reason why there's separation is because as humans, we forget that we come from spirit, which is source, which is God. And
Mhm.
as humans, we create, these divisions because it gives us a leg up or
Mhm.
some sort of power over someone else. And
Yeah.
that's the human ego problem, not the God
Yeah.
problem, right?
And
Yeah.
it all ties into like those who I have a science background too. So grew up Catholic, have a biology background. Just I love
She
understanding
really
how
is an enigma.
yeah,
Like
I love
honestly.
understanding how things work. I love this conversation because I for so long have just been like always looking at it. It's like who cares? Like you said, who cares what you believe in? And even some people and on the astrology lines are like, oh,
Mhm.
those people are just fools, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but isn't that the same as you having a faith in what you're seeing? There's, there's structure there. There's some, things that are there, but science too, in all of that, you know, saying energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So all the energy that's ever been a part of Earth and space is all the energy that came from the very beginning, whatever you want to go with as the very beginning for you. And we can't, like when we're gone, our physical body goes somewhere and it
Mhm.
doesn't just get destroyed. It goes back into the earth. It goes back into the air.
We're getting
Yeah.
real deep, Erica. I didn't know if you planned for this.
Well, we're
but-
only 17 minutes in. Look at that.
I really, It's kind of my favorite. I like to just go there. Like, this is what we're here for, right? Like,
Mhm.
let's go there and learn from each other. It's
Yeah.
to
I
me,
love that people are talking about stuff like this
Mhm.
more now
Me
because
too.
it's, like we were all saying is that, this kind of feels like the whole world is sort of awakening, if you want to use that term, but questioning and being
Mhm.
curious and talking about it and being okay to talk about it. And, our podcast started out talking about ghost stories.
Mhm.
And we had people that were on this TV show called The Dead Files who called
Mhm.
this duo in to get the ghosts out of their house or tell them who they are or, help them figure
Mhm.
out stuff. And we've interviewed some of these clients who come on here, tell us our stories. And every once in a while they stop and they go, I can't believe I'm talking about this. I can't
Yeah.
talk about this to anybody.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
And
know.
here
that's
they're
the
talking about it to
community we-
us, and we're like, more, 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 more.
Yeah.
And then the people who listen to us are like, oh my God, that was so cool. So I think the more that we talk about it, put it out there, make
Mhm.
it normal, the more it's going
Yeah.
to reach more people and open up people's eyes. And
And I think like I was saying with social media, people are thinking, well, there's more and more people having these experiences. Maybe I'm not, super weird, and maybe I'm not, an outcast if there's more people like me. And I think questioning is good in any capacity, whether it's religion, whether it's, spiritual, whether it's supernatural. People who don't question, that's how you, in my opinion, in terms of like faith and religion, that's how you just become, part of a cult. You're
Wouldn't it
just
be
following.
Wouldn't it be
Or a
boring
cog
if
in the
we were
wheel.
all the same and we
Yes.
all believe the same thing?
mhm.
It would.
Well,
We'd be
Unless
so
they were like
boring.
me.
Yeah.
In which case it would be great. But
And then if we were all like you, it would be brilliant.
just kidding.
No, but if you think about it, I mean, we are not meant to have the same belief structures.
Right.
Just
Mhm.
like if we grow up closer to the equator, we're going to have darker skin. We're going to have
Mhm.
darker eyes.
Mhm.
We're going to be protected from the harsh rays of the sun. We're going to have a different natural environment. So
Mhm.
the way we carry our bodies and our clothing is going to reflect that. The way that we see the elements are going to be like thousands of years old of how we respect like the cycles of the earth. And then we start relating that to our gods or goddesses. If we grow up in Sweden, we're going to have a completely different experience. We're going to look different, like
A little more translucent.
yeah, a little more translucent. Totally.
I'm right here, you guys.
Same.
I just think that people are at this point looking for more.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and when the world feels so disingenuous or scary or violent, we're looking within and we're questioning,
Mhm.
who are we and how can we be better? And we're questioning that which we are raised with and taught to divide us. And
Mhm.
I think that it's now time for
Oh,
Oh,
I thought it was me.
I thought it was me too.
I know. I was waiting to see if we were all frozen or if it was her.
At least she freezes looking cute.
Yeah,
She
she did freeze
I always
up.
look like
I look like I just got hit in the face with a frying pan. She looks like she's gonna walk onto a runway.
I know.
Oh, I just threw something on and she's gorgeous.
Right.
No, this old thing.
This whole thing, and I'm like over here looking like a troll in my dungeon.
Oh, she's out.
Oh,
Maybe she'll come back in.
and she's gone. Okay, I love her. She
She's
is
great.
amazing. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll stop dominating the conversation.
No,
That's
please. If you got questions, ask. I just have to make sure that I can read the 2 questions that we got.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, she's probably
They're kind
gonna.
of going along in with the questions that I had anyways.
Good.
Yeah, she's
Right.
sweet.
That's never happened to me in my life. I
Oh,
don't know what just is that
Amy,
Mercury
your dad,
retrograde?
tell your
Um,
dad to knock it off.
It might
It's
be my
Amy's
dad.
dad.
Does
my-
he do that?
He
Does
likes to
break
mess
in?
with our
Well, yeah, we
technology a bit.
think we joke that it's him. I don't know that it would be him. My dad passed away in 2019. He used to be a broadcast guy. He was on radio and stuff.
Oh my
And
God.
so I've talked to a couple mediums and psychics who have told me that he's very excited that I'm doing this and he wants to be a part of it.
Oh my
And
God.
so I sometimes wonder if that's
Yeah.
him.
So
Oh,
we always
yeah.
will joke and we're like, Alan, you can be a part of it.
You're
You
like,
don't
we,
have
Dad.
to.
we haven't talked about Alan in a while, so I'm pretty
Oh
sure
my
it's
God.
got to be him.
He's
I bet he's like, don't talk about politics. Move away.
He would have loved this conversation
Mhm.
because
Oh.
he was very spiritual but not religious, you know?
Yeah.
So
Mhm. Yeah.
that's- yeah.
Also, we were commenting about how when you froze, you looked very like
You were like
stunning,
model.
like
Yeah.
a model. And we
Oh, well,
look,
thank you.
we freeze. Like I'm like I freeze and I look like a troll. Like
Yeah, I freeze like
yeah. And Erica's like
That was so
a
weird.
halo around her head.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not sure exactly where we were, but it was, I think,
I don't know.
saying it's more about at this point, like if you dig deep enough into all of our religious backgrounds or spiritual backgrounds or beliefs, I agree with you, AP. It's like it all starts from the same energy.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter the year that we
Mhm.
started our evolution, right? Or
Mhm.
I really think it all gels back to the same
Yeah.
place. And yeah, I love Jesus
Mhm.
and I love Wicca and I love
All right, Erica.
Norseology and
We'll have to talk after because I really do want to blend the two, but my faith is very strong
Hmm?
and I don't want to lose that. But I also am very intrigued by Wicca and, you know, the whole nature part of it and how we can make those work together because I feel like they are similar.
Well, I mean, I would just ask a couple of questions of you. I would say, you know, what is it that you're afraid of losing? And if you're in control of how you practice and how you engage, then do you need to be afraid?
I'm afraid of losing the concept of like God, and I don't want it to turn into this like
Megan, are you afraid of it, you losing it, or people thinking you've lost it?
Why you gotta be all deep, AP?
That's a good question.
I think both, because I do know when I brought up Wicca, the idea
Mhm.
to my mom
That's-
and a couple of
that's
my
why I've
friends, they
asked
were like,
The question.
my mom was like, well, you just, what?
Yeah.
I
And you had a
just-
friend that reacted really
Mhm.
poorly
Yes.
too.
Then I would
Yes.
ask another question. I think there's a lot of power in words and things that we've named things.
Yes.
And I think that Wicca or witchcraft has a very dark kind of
And
scary
negative.
connotation.
Yeah.
And so I would say even think about it in a different parameter. And instead of labeling yourself or something that's intriguing to you, which is really just communication with the elements of the earth, which,
Yes.
you know, ultimately were probably created by this energy and source of God, then it's really about communing with the elements and the energy of life around you and not labeling it Wicca
Mhm.
because,
Mhm.
you know, I think of like some of the practices that I do of I talk to the trees and I communicate with the
Amy
tree.
does that.
Talk to
Do
my
you?
tree.
Oh,
There's
we
a
should
big
talk
tree
about this.
outside.
She
Yes.
found out his name. Oh my God, it's the
Oh.
best story. Amy, you
I
gotta tell
wanna
it.
hear
You gotta
it.
tell it.
Well, I
Yeah.
went out. This is a huge elm tree in our backyard. It's like the shade of it is our entire backyard, and our backyard's pretty big.
It's gotta be like centuries old.
It's
Ah,
it's
bet.
it's at least 150 years old. It could be
Mhm.
older than that even. It's the oldest tree in the neighborhood, I'm pretty sure, because there's no
Oh.
other tree that I've seen in the neighborhood that's that big. And so I used to just go out there and stand out there every once in a while and one day I went out and I put my hand on the tree and I said, "What's your name?" And I heard, not heard, but you know,
In your body.
in
Mhm.
my mind, mind's eye or whatever, I heard the name Ambrose. And I don't even know anybody with that name. I don't even know it. Like, AP was like, were you watching Sabrina, the
Sabrina.
Teenage Witch? And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I've never seen that show.
No,
No,
the
Which is a
Chilling
good show.
Adventures
Chilling
of
Adventures.
Sabrina.
Sorry.
You should watch it. It's really good.
I
On
should.
Netflix.
But, and I was like, that was weird. I was not
Mhm.
expecting to hear anything. So now
Yeah.
every day I go out and I put my hand on the trunk and I say, hi, Ambrose, how you doing?
And
Well-
so I think that's the beginning or the middle or whatever. I mean, that's advanced too, but it's like that is the energy of, if you want to call it Wicca, it's really respecting the life
Mhm.
force and everything and understanding that we have the ability to tap into the life force, just like nature can tap into our life force, right? We
Mhm.
just had like huge fires here, basically across the street from my house. Nature tapped into my life force. Like I was,
Are you out on the West Coast then?
Colorado.
Colorado.
Okay.
Colorado, yeah. And so we feed each other. We
Mhm.
feed nature, nature feeds us. And like, so really it's about building this relationship with all of the life around us and respecting the fact that it's not just people. And
Mhm.
I feel like if I were God, I'd be psyched if my
Mhm.
people were recognizing and respecting all of the life
Mhm.
that resides in everything. And
Right.
so I'm just thinking about that, Megan, for you. Like, sometimes we get so tied up on those names that it holds us back from
Yeah.
really just building
That's
a
true.
relationship. And,
Mhm.
and, you know, a lot of those movies kind of damaged us in the
Mhm.
90s.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
how old you are,
and
but
Megan, and you know how much like for me, just I go outside and I know that's where I reset. So like I haven't done a lot of hiking this year and I've definitely felt more of that shift of not being
Yeah.
outside as much. I'm going to the Boundary Waters this week. So I'm really looking forward to now I haven't just sat and talked with trees, but I usually just sit and talk into the wind
Mhm.
and just talk about how like my favorite days are the storm cloud days when you get those dark blue gray clouds
Yeah.
coming in and just so many people are like I'm terrified of storms and I'm like I love it as long as they're not dangerous.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it just finding your path and I do think through too if it's the feeling that's coming from you or if it's the feeling that's coming from others because we know that you
We're
carry
all
some of that too.
empaths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
that's tough.
one of the things that happened to me when mediumship started happening to me, so basically I went through a very traumatic event with one of my children, and he almost died, and then I spun out into like this cycle of depression after that, and um, and then it's kind of a long story, but it was a very dark period of time in my life, and I knew I was going to not be okay if I
Mhm.
didn't change something.
Mhm.
And I literally started just meditating, just being quiet, just meditating, and a little bit every day. And till one day something opened up and changed inside of me so significantly that I felt different. And felt like a miracle. I
Mhm.
didn't know that it was my Kundalini rising. Like I had no idea that that's what it was. And I still don't know that much about it, but it felt like a miracle to me. And it was after that I started getting visitations from people who had been deceased and sometimes that I didn't even know were dead.
Mhm.
And I thought a lot about what was happening to me at that time and being raised Catholic, even though I wasn't practicing anymore. I really didn't think that it was okay that this was happening to me. I really thought that something was wrong, that I wasn't supposed to have any ability to have any power to be able to speak to both sides as a human and as a spirit. And I really had to spend a lot of time talking to God. And I did. And I had beautiful conversations with God. And it was life changing because I felt like one conversation I was having with God, and this is also before I understood mediumship and even the clairs and the spiritual senses. I didn't even know what that was yet. But I heard God inside of my head, and the voice of God was like, respect is different than fear. You are not
Yes.
supposed to be afraid of me, of this energy of source. You are meant to respect the creation, the power, the life force in it.
Mhm.
And as I went along on this journey, I started realizing that me communicating with dead people was no different than me communicating with people embodied, because we are all spirit. We are all in this bodies. We already know that we're going to perish and that our bodies don't live forever, but our soul does. And so why is it bad? Why have I been taught that it's bad and conditioned to believe it my whole life? And it really goes back to these power structures.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
me going deeper into mediumship and my spiritual life and the freedom I've found in having my relationship with my source and creator and understanding the beauty of all these different ascended masters and teachers has only made me closer to God, not further away. And so even talking to like blades of grass and trees and, Ambrose, like you do, that is honoring the life force of creation, that which is God. And that's how I feel about it. And so I think that just going down the path of, if you're feeling curious about what it means to be blended more with like the earth energies and how that can play into your life, one of the simple things is just sitting in front of a fire and meditating on the flame. And you're then stepping into the energy and the life force of the fire. And that would be considered Wiccan for some people, especially if you start opening up to it. But really, that's
I
just
just thought it was
fire.
pyromania.
So I don't know.
That's just a bonus.
I just had to break the tension a little, throw people in.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've started doing a lot because I work from home 4 days a week. And so when I'm feeling stressed, AP and Amy both are like, I go and walk, take my shoes off, and I walk around in the grass, and I just kind of will stand. And Zoe, the other medium one of the mediums we've talked to, taught me how to like, inhale the good energy and exhale the bad. So I kind of will do that, and I'll picture it. And so that's really been very actually soothing.
absolutely. And like what AP was saying earlier is like energy isn't created or there's no finite beginning or end. It's just transmitted and transformed. And like even exhaling the bad, I used also as a Catholic, I had a lot of guilt. I'm like, I shouldn't be giving any of that away.
I still have that.
But the energy it will be transformed into something that which is going to be serviceable. It's like going to help others or help the earth. And so it's like, I just think of that relationship as like this constant flowing, like I will take all that you have, I'll figure out what to do with it, and I'm going to give you what I can't take anymore. And that's like this reciprocity we have,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know if an hour is going to be enough tonight.
I know. I was just looking. I'm like, we have to.
We'll just have to have Erika
We'll
back
have to have her back on and do a
things,
part two.
Yeah,
Has it been an hour already?
No,
No, not
close,
yet,
but
no, it's only
definitely relate a lot to everything that you've talked about, Erika, too, because I though I grew up in the Catholic school, kindergarten through 8th grade, I played sports and we were outdoors, so we didn't go to church every Sunday, and I still don't. The construct for me for that is a little bit, I'd rather be outside in the creations of everything that's around me, because that's where I recharge and where I have always found more of that intention, or just being around, my dogs or other things. And I've really found in the last year, I've had a few losses. Every time after that, the day after, I went for a walk, a run, or a hike. I didn't realize I did that till after all of that happened.
Yeah. You were like so enmeshed in the energy around you of like creation, the purest energy of nature, which is divine, that it literally recharges you. And I think that's so important. We're forgetting how we came into this world, and the element of being in nature is one of the purest ways to change our whole energetic frequency. Like I so relate to that. I totally, if I go for a walk, it's the same as if I meditate. One or the other works both the same for me. They're both clearing, and cleansing and connecting. And so that makes so much sense. And I wish that we would find ourselves in nature at the first moment of dis-ease. I think there would be a lot of peaceful experiences that we would have. So
You do have a leg up on us though, because you live in Colorado, which is just honestly gorgeous.
it is. I am from Minnesota though.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Amy and I were emailing a while back, and I grew up in a little town west of Minneapolis.
Which one?
Delano.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah,
I want to go
yeah.
out to, there's a great winery out in Delano. I'm planning to
Oh.
go to soon.
Yeah, when I was growing up there was no such thing,
No
but
wineries.
there was an apple orchard. Maybe it's the same thing now.
Oh,
wonder.
could be.
Yeah.
I'll look and let you know.
They planted
Yeah.
some grapes too.
Yeah, I think Minnesota is so beautiful. I
It
love
is.
Minnesota.
It is. But
It's
it's
a
not.
little bit depressing in the winter though.
It's a little too cold and a
Super
little
much.
too hot. for
Yes.
me.
When you start getting into doing some of the outdoors things, so I got snowshoes a few years ago for Christmas,
cold.
and even like this past year, the last couple winters, been able to do more hiking than snowshoeing,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that's been
Strange.
fun. Just to
Mhm.
we went up in December along the lake, the north shore of Lake Superior. I didn't even wear a jacket. I had a heavy sweater
which
on
is-
and a long
yeah.
sleeve, and that was it.
Wow.
This
Wow.
last winter was
So
very
Amy and
doable.
I will sit by the fire and meditate, and AP can go hike,
Yeah.
Yes.
and then
Yep.
we'll
Out there.
reconvene.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys know I've got a hunting shack.
Yeah.
My family grew up hunting, so I do deer hunt, I do pheasant hunt. We eat the
Yeah.
meat, so
Mhm.
and I really enjoy it. But yes, I always say a prayer after. If I take one, then I make sure to
Yeah.
say a prayer for it, because I get to have really great meat that not everybody gets to have.
It's honestly probably the most ethical and honorable way to eat meat is by hunting it and
Mhm.
giving thanks
Mhm.
for it. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've never done that myself. I just have a lot of respect for that, though. I think that that's honorable for the animal.
It it was one of those things we grew up doing as a family, and so it's a lot of family time that I think people don't correlate that part of
Mhm.
it, and so lots of memories from that. But yeah, and there's like that 1% of hunters that make the rest of us look bad.
Right.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, there's that 1% of mediums that make the rest of us look
Right.
bad.
That's true.
1% of
Son
like
Of everything.
Christians.
Everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ugh,
so
they're not Christians, but
I know.
yeah, I get. Yeah.
They're Christians.
Yeah.
In name only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, I know. We're so polarizing.
Yeah.
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 I did ask I put some feelers out to see if anybody had any questions for you, our listeners and
Oh,
our
cool.
patrons. And I do have a couple that I want to make sure we get to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I could read you one of those. Both of these questions are similar. They're about contacting people who have passed, loved ones who have passed. So the first one is from our patron, Leisha. And she said, is there a general period of time after a person passes that they cannot be reached or contacted? I've always wondered if it takes time before an individual can reach out to a medium or a medium can successfully reach a person. I get that death leaves an energetic imprint sensitives can pick up, but no matter how ready for death someone may be, it seems like they would be a bit disoriented initially to be spirit. So basically, I guess what she's looking for is there a time in between when someone
Yeah.
her mother just passed like a couple of weeks ago. So it's probably why that's on
Okay.
her mind.
Yeah. It's interesting. So there's a lot of conversation around this amongst mediums. Some say, well, you should wait 6 months before you try to speak to someone who has passed. I haven't had that experience. I just think that it's different for everybody. I don't think that there is a time where spirit can or cannot come and communicate. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. So if someone's coming for a mediumship reading, I don't think it matters when they've passed. I've spoken to people who have come through and it's been a week. I've spoken to people who have come through and it's been a month. I think it's more about the person who's grieving, to be honest. I think that their grieving energy can be, when you're in grief, like deep grief, like your body contracts. Right? It doesn't open, it contracts and it feels like kind of concave and it's protective and it's kind of shut down. And so I think that it's more for a mediumship reading if you can handle being in the space of someone else connecting to your loved one that you miss and then bringing them forward with information and things that they want to share versus if you wait a few months, will you have a little bit more room to be able to receive that really sometimes overwhelming energy?
Wow. I hadn't even thought of that. That's really interesting.
And then the other part that I would add is if we're not talking about a mediumship reading, but we're talking about you communicating with your own loved one or them coming through in like a dream visitation, or
I have a lot of those,
clients, which is a form of mediumship. And I've had clients say, why is my mother not coming and talking to me yet? I really miss her. I'm ready for her. And that's where I'd say, well, she might be trying to get through to you, but sometimes the layers of humanness are either hard to penetrate, or it's also, I would say that it can be hard for a spirit to make themselves known, if they're not quite in their full spiritual like embodiment. So I don't think there's one hard and fast rule. I think that I've known people who have, dreamt about or seen like their grandfather or their brother or their sister or whomever immediately or within days after passing, and others where it seems like it takes a long time. So
I dream about my grandma constantly. Constantly. And every time in the dream, I'm always like, I'm aware that she shouldn't be there. Like, I know she's dead. And so when I'm in the dream, I'm always like cherishing the time with her because I know it's going to end.
My dad has dreams with people. Like, he had one of my cousin's grandpa, not related at all, recently. He couldn't remember the message. He was like, he had a message for his son and his wife, but he couldn't remember what the message was. But he's had other ones that have come through. One of his good friends who used to be a babysitter of mine, her dad had passed away, and my dad had a full-on conversation with him in his dream. And then at the end of it, he was like, oh yeah, and tell so-and-so happy birthday. So my dad contacted her and said, yeah, I had a dream about your dad. And he said to tell so-and-so happy birthday, his son. It was his son's birthday.
Wow.
Brilliant. And that is like, that's my favorite. And so your dad is someone who
he has that. He just doesn't, he's
not admitting it.
He was a Catholic school teacher for over 40 years.
Yeah.
Honestly,
so that's really been indoctrinated into him.
And he went to Catholic schools.
It's so interesting being Catholic because, I feel so comfortable with all sorts of like deities because I was raised Catholic. So I'm like, I can honor so many people for their experience on earth and their spiritual abilities.
Yeah.
And yet you're not supposed to, you need to have like a priest to intercede in your relationship to God. So like there's
that
such
seems almost like oxymoronic a little bit.
It's
like
called
you're not
control, dear.
You're not supposed to like, it's like the opposite. True.
Yeah. And that
Control,
really also goes back to that superficial power thing. But
the human ego.
Yeah. But the dream visitations I love because it's such a way for someone in spirit to come in, and it's like the path of least resistance. So they found that your dad has an open channel when he's sleeping. His ego's not in the way, his mind's not in the way, his consciousness is like, oh, I'll be on this playing field with you. And that's how mediumship starts for a lot of people. starts happening, those dream
Mhm.
visitations, like with grandma.
Mhm.
And then you're like, I wonder if I can like open my consciousness like this during the
Yes.
day.
Mhm.
And yes, you
And
can.
that's where my
That's-
question at the start came from.
That's
Yeah.
what that's what I want to do. That's what I want
Yes,
to learn
I
to
do
do.
too. I do
Oh,
too.
well, yes, that you can do that. And
Yes.
yeah, take my class with me in September.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
But
But yeah, I remember I dreamt about one and I told the girls this. I had this dream and it was like everybody that had passed away was there, like my dad's dad and my dad's mom and my mom's dad. And what was really interesting was that I remember in the dream, my mom, who had also passed in the dream but is alive in real life, waved her mom over because I'd never met her mom. Her mom passed away 2 months before they got married. And so in the dream, my mom waved her mom over and her mom saw me and like put her hand like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing you. And I woke up and it was like just I was just so happy. Like I woke up and I texted the girls and I was like, and it was on
Mhm.
a really like shitty time where it happened. And I just texted them and I'm like, I just had the most amazing dream. And I woke up just completely happy.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah,
And
it was
like
amazing.
that's the thing. I mean, our consciousness, we don't know what happens to our consciousness all the time, right? When we're driving and we're zoned out, when we're sleeping,
Mhm.
we're not dead. So where is our spirit? Our spirit is playing around in these different dimensions. And some of it we remember, some of it we don't. Some of it is like a release of the mind from the day. And like that's the one thing that's interesting about dream visitations is sometimes our ego or like our human our conscious mind can get a little bit wrapped up. And so like it was like your grandmother, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it's almost like she brought your mother in so you'd experience the dream
Mhm.
on a certain
Yes.
way
Mhm.
that would feel emotionally. I mean,
Yes.
spirit is so intelligent.
I think I said that to you, Megan.
You did.
Yeah.
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 Well,
So,
and Megan, when we all sat down for a group reading with a psychic, God, it was over a year ago now, I think.
Mhm.
And she and Megan, your mother's mother was there.
Yes.
And you kept saying, I don't know her. I never
Yeah.
knew her. I never met her. And she's like, well, she's here. So
Yeah.
so
that
that
was her way
happens
of,
all the time.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I've done readings for people where they'll have, I mean, it's like there's like a line of people that
Mhm.
I can go through and explain who all these people are. And they're like, I've never met them.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
this is recorded. Bring this home to your family and like, go through and make sure this evidence is verified because they're all showing up for you. And usually when that happens, it's at a time of a lot of transition. And it's like your family is coming forward to be like, hey, we're here and we're supporting you from this side.
I
Mhm.
had that from Jenny,
Love that.
but it wasn't for me. It was somebody who I had not met, but
Mhm.
had passed away, but I knew their family. And all of the 4 remaining living members were going through some form of change at the same time.
Yeah.
He didn't give
Yeah.
his name, but all I got was I knew who the person was. Like I never met him,
Mhm.
but as soon as she said what she said, I was like, his name just right in my head.
Yeah. Yep. And that goes back to the path of least resistance.
Mhm.
Like spirit, they want to communicate with us and help us heal when it's appropriate, when they're not going to get in our way,
Mhm.
when they can be supportive, and when they see that that stepping in is going to be helpful. They won't do it if it's going to affect someone's free will. But and I've had similar things happen either in readings or in dream visitations where the strangest messages have come through and they're like, oh, you can see me? And I'm like, yes, I can see you. And they're like, can you call my daughter? And I'm like, yes, I will do that. And then I wake up and I'm like, wow, that was weird.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you start practicing on being open and in a way with the right kind of intention,
Mhm.
we are able to communicate on all realms. Like,
Yeah.
We just need to get out of the
I'm gonna really look
confines.
into your masterclass
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I want to
I
take
want
that one
I
too.
would do too. Yeah. Amy, did you have one more or another question?
I did. I had
for-
one more
Yeah.
question. This is from Beck, who is a person that I took an audio class from, audio engineering class. She's an
Yeah.
audio
Oh,
engineer.
yeah. I remember that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so we were emailing and I said, hey, I'm going to be talking to a medium on Monday. Do you have any questions? Because she was saying that she's sort of going through some stuff and becoming more open to different realms and things like that, which was not something that was her jam at all before. But something, and I don't know what it is, but something happened in her life that is making her be open to these things. And so her question is, some mediums say there is a shelf life for how long you're connected to a loved one on the other side. And some say you'll always be connected with them. Specifically, how long can we still connect with them before they move on to their next thing?
Oh, I love that question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that used to be so confusing for me until I started seeing what was happening on the other side. As a medium, sometimes I get snippets. Of course, we never get the whole picture, but
Right.
from what I've garnered and what I've experienced internally through like my meditation and prayer journeys is I think of it like okay, so let's start at that beginning. Is there a shelf life? No, there's no shelf life whatsoever because our higher self continues to live as the master of all our lives. Our higher self is our spirit, is the essence of our divinity, the spark that is completely connected to God. In each life that we live, our soul comes from our higher self. It's kind of like we have this beautiful hotel, and each life we live is a hotel room. You can't be in two rooms at the same time, right? Like we live one life, but we all are a part, each one of us is a part of our own hotel. So we are always connected to God. We are always connected to ourselves, no matter where we are. And so you could have lost Grandma Joe, 20 years ago, and Grandma Joe is still always going to be, in essence, connected to her higher self as her higher self. Even if she goes and lives life as Robert in 60, 70, 80, 200 years, Grandma Joe is still always going to be a part of her higher self when you go to that soul. It's kind of a weird description, but she's never going to be gone. Just like Erika will always be a part of my higher self. So Erika will always be accessible to someone who wants or misses me.
Well, I
after
mean, I think
die.
it all comes back to what AP said, and energy is not created or destroyed. So it's just gonna transfer to a different place.
Yeah,
Whether it's a body, whether it's a hotel room, whatever
But
the case is.
I think also, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're also saying that if this person that you wanted to speak to, if their soul is reincarnated while you're still alive, you can still talk to the
Grandma
piece of their
Joe.
soul that was your grandmother.
Exactly.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes,
Well-
that's what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like, it's like we are always the essence, the soul, the aspect of us that which is eternal. We are always holding the structure of that hotel, like the lobby, everything. We are that eternal part of us.
Pool.
Well,
Yeah.
that resonates. So if you
love
girls
that
remember,
hotel.
I asked Jenny about Briggs and Wesley. And because I have always felt that part of Briggs is in Wesley, even though they live together at the same time. And she mentioned something along the lines of like soul splitting, that, you can have some of that. And Briggs knew he was on his way out and made sure that Wesley was here for me because he knew I was going to need that. But Briggs has been a part of my several lives of mine.
Yeah. And I think that that's a beautiful way to explain it too. I don't even know if it's soul splitting
Mhm.
as much as like, another analogy would be like the ocean. We're infinitely like the ocean, but the ocean runs different rivers and different currents
Currents. Yep.
and or different droplets, and we go up into the clouds and then we fall back down as rain. But ultimately, any droplet of water from the ocean is still the ocean. It's
Mhm.
just going to express itself in different ways.
Mhm.
And so, as a medium, one of the weirder things is when I'm talking to someone who, say someone's grandfather passes and comes through, oftentimes they'll show me what they looked like before they passed, so they can be identified as that.
Mhm.
But then they'll immediately go into when they're young and healthy, and they'll start like describing their life like that. And so they show us what they remember, what we remember them as, so that we can identify and feel their essence.
Mhm.
But that's not how they're living on the other side,
Mhm.
right?
My
Right.
dad's
So-
seen
Who would
that too with
wanna-
his sister that
Right.
passed
Who
away.
would want to live as like an 80-year-old with arthritis on the
Mhm.
other side?
Right. Right. And so if it's the same with like lives that we've lived, I think anyways, my belief is that when I am no longer alive in this body, the essence of me is going to be in my higher self, like
Mhm.
the infinite. And if my children want to come contact me, even if it's 1,000 years later, the essence of me would be able to show up.
Mhm.
So for them, and I would
Yeah.
know everything and know how to show myself to them
Mhm.
Mhm.
in ways that they could understand. Now they'd have to be 1,000 years old for that to work, but yeah.
I mean,
those are good
science is
questions.
advancing, so
Right?
We-
Yeah. We can do a lot with DNA
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that those are really good questions because they take it a little bit further than some of the more basic concepts of like, is mediumship good or bad? Or
Mm.
hi,
Yeah.
honey, I see your dog. It's really a deep study of understanding the soul and what
Mhm.
happens to us when we die, and what do
Yeah.
we remember, and what do we feel. And I heard
There's
growling.
people walking by.
Oh,
Oh,
he's got to
so
protect
No.
you.
Oh,
We're
if
okay.
somebody
Thank you.
were to ask you, Erika, what is a soul? How would you describe it? How would you answer that question?
Really easy question to
I
ask.
know.
Yeah.
Just like
Just a softball lobbed up.
quick.
I think of, okay, well, I think that I would have to explain a couple of ways that I see things. I think of my spirit as the infinite part of me, right? I think of the soul is my humanity, my love as I am expressed and expressing in this life. And so I feel like my soul, when I die, goes back to my spirit.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then I think of like my ego, which is a manifestation of my humanness, right? But the soul is like the way that I live love through my humanness, and my humanness
Mhm.
remembers how to find my spirit. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. That's how I would describe it.
Okay.
And that's a hard one. It took me a while to kind of come to that and understand that
Yeah.
and to feel that. Because I think there's a lot of, we kind of toss around spirit and soul all the time.
Mhm.
But when I'm connecting as a medium, I'm connecting to someone's spirit, like that infinite part of them,
Mhm.
even if it's still, they're healing their soul,
Mhm.
right? When people have had very hard human lives, they often show me when they cross over, someone's like, well, how are they doing? I'm like, well, they've been going through a lot. Like there's been a big transition of their soul healing as they move
Mhm.
back into their spirit. And so that is something that I see a lot.
That's
So
cool.
That's
yeah,
really neat. Yeah.
yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right.
When we met with the psychic the first time, somebody that came in for me was not somebody I was not expecting at all. It was an aunt that I had
Mhm.
that was she was she and I always got along great, but she didn't get along great with the rest of the family. And I was surprised that she came through, but she's the only aunt on my mom's side who had passed at that time. And so it had to be her. And I said, well, that's weird because she wasn't like we were not a huge part of each other's lives. And like the family wasn't, they weren't very nice to her. And, and Jenny, the psychic, she said, well, she says that she has shed all of that. She's worked through all that. She has shed all that. She understands that things were difficult. That's not who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's really cool. And that's basically what you just said.
Yeah. And that's what I see a lot. I mean, so I think it's pretty interesting. I've learned so much about everything is so different than what I was taught. Like
Mhm.
from what I see, we don't just walk up to like pearly gates and like all of a sudden we're bliss.
Mhm.
It's like we go through this beautiful process from what I've seen as a medium of seeing what life was like for other people that you interacted with. Like the karma of our life is what we get to experience when we cross over, like understanding the pain, the beauty, the suffering, the joy from everything around you. And so I've had so many readings where there have been people that my person who was receiving the reading didn't want to talk to someone that was maybe abusive or really a traumatic person for my sitter in their life. Um, and the person on the other side who had crossed over explained, and the evidence was like explaining all of the harm that they caused and how they were able to understand that harm and how that they were able to um, learn how to heal themselves so that they could change the energy of
Mhm.
healing for others and take responsibility that they hadn't taken in life. I've seen this over and over again.
I have a
I
story
don't.
like that with a friend of mine who had passed. We didn't talk for after her wedding, a couple months after her wedding, we didn't talk for over a year because I cut contact because give and take kind of person. And I would give and she would take.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And she passed away suddenly. Um, and she actually, so this ties back to something we talked about earlier. It was about a week after her passing that I was already seeing Jenny at that time. And she came through, and Jenny was like, I've never had someone who's passed so recently come through so strongly. And she apologized for all the names she called me that I didn't know. That uh, I tried to help her as much as she could, but I could never get through to her. Um, Turns out she was an alcoholic and was feeding into a lot of negative stuff that
Mhm.
ultimately is what took her.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of it stemmed from the loss of her mother, who she was with.
Yeah, I mean the healing that happens and it how did that change your life too?
It was
Receiving that information.
it was just nice to I was very surprised. It was after Memorial Day weekend that I got a text from her sister-in-law about that she was not doing well in the hospital. Um, had been fine before brain injury. Um, we had reconnected just a few months prior. So to actually get some of that information, and I kind of laughed because I was like, I'm sure she called me all sorts of names because every time we would talk, she would then post about missing her best friend in another state, not
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
was almost always right after we talked. So it was just really nice to hear that one, she was happy
Mhm.
and she was okay and all of that stuff. But it was just like a closure to
Mhm.
that part of the relationship.
Yeah. And to know that there's an evolution that continues happening, right? There's a lot of talk about some mediums believe that when you die, like you're just perfect and you go back to spirit and you're like this beautiful angelic. And I don't want to dismiss what anyone else believes. That's not what I've experienced. I've experienced people going through the karma of their lives, and it can take a very long time to heal and to be forgiven and to change frequency and vibration and to learn about love. And I've seen the most beautiful things happening, like when children have crossed over, just being like, literally, it's like the beings that have been there waiting for the children have been just, I mean, it's made me cry during readings because it's the love like that is waiting for them is so powerful and potent that it's changed my life. And so it's, for me, it's like, I liked learning that there is an aspect of what you would call karma, or you could call personal hell, or understanding what your life was about for good and for bad. And then how to work through the process of healing so that you can carry on. And not all souls choose to do that. Some of them don't. So, yeah. And that's where, the good and the bad energy and things like that come in. And that's another very long conversation, but
for sure. Like we could still talk
Next
for
time.
another 2 hours. Like
I
for
know.
sure.
Yeah, I would love to talk more about things like that, and about like, because of the show that we recap, a lot of times there's bad energies in the house that
Really
are
bad.
not able to, fully cross over or whatever, and they're causing problems, and they're setting things on fire and
pushing people and
doing things like and hurting people and pushing them down the stairs or making people disappear. All sorts of things like that. And I hope that you have never had to speak with anybody like that, but I would be curious to know like what your thoughts are about how that is possible and stuff. But
well, I mean, I think I will just give you my quick feeling on that, and I think we all have intention for what we put our energy into and how we carry ourselves and like what we connect with. And my intention before any reading is for the highest and greatest good, for the highest and most loving energy to come forward. And so that's all that I connect with. And there are people who have done very bad things in life that want to come forward, but those are people who are on a healing journey. And I mean, sometimes they're asking for forgiveness. Other times they just want to say, hey, I was really awful to you, and I want you to know now I understand. You don't even have to forgive me.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to pop off because it's getting close to my son's bedtime and he's 3.5. So I'm going to pop off. Erika, it was delightful to meet you. I enjoyed every second of this.
Likewise.
And I will look into your masterclass, and I really hope that we can do this again soon.
Yeah, anytime.
But thank you so much for your time. And I'm sorry, but I just want to see him before he goes to bed. So
yeah.
All right.
Priority.
Bye. Thank you.
yes, we could probably talk for an awful lot longer. So we should definitely have you back on again.
Okay.
I would love to do that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
And thank you. I loved our conversation. Everyone had such interesting places. I would love to talk tree communication with you sometime.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Beautiful world.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. It was lovely meeting you.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. And AP, do you want to tell us what we're doing next week?
Yeah, next week we'll be releasing a sideshow episode that hasn't yet been recorded. We just can't wait to see what that might entail. But thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues.
Nailed it.